Я темная. Тогда не видно этого. Чуть-чуть повыше. Давай поставим, чтобы так.
We are live. We can start. Thank you.
Good morning from Vienna and good afternoon, Central Asia. Добрый день, Центральная Азия. My name is Rasa Ostrowskite and I'm EU Permanent Representative to the OSCE, and I'm very delighted to moderate this panel. Our panel will focus on Central Asian women entrepreneurship, reaching beyond the pandemic. Before I introduce the topic, allow me to recall a few housekeeping points. First of all, this event is being recorded, so you will be able to watch it on the forum's website, but also on the YouTube channel. All participants are muted in order to avoid disruptions. Simultaneous interpretation is available during the entire event. Please look at the little globe sign at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you can choose which audio feed you would like to listen to. Please note that this function works only in Zoom application, and for those of you who do not or cannot download the application, please make sure that you reach out on YouTube channels because there is both English and Russian interpretation provided there. Our technical team is likely to drop you a link in the chat box to access the broadcasted video. There is also a live text support chat box on the forum's websites, so please make sure you use it in case you experience any technical issues. And my last point, we would like to have a very interactive exchange, so please use the chat box to pose your questions. And please indicate if you would like to address your question to a particular speaker or to the entire panel. Now let me turn to the actual topic. COVID-19. It has presented an unprecedented challenge to all states and societies, and it has caused widespread economic disruption, leading to severe global economic recession, and of course impacting livelihoods of so many. It is obvious that COVID-19 and the ensuing disruption has disproportionately impacted women. COVID-19 has, of course, affected women entrepreneurs. Not only women-owned businesses typically are more vulnerable to economic impacts due to lower average firm age and size, but they are also concentrated in the industry sectors that are hit hardest by economic shutdowns. It is women entrepreneurs who are more likely to be solo entrepreneurs or self-employed without employees, but often just with subcontractors. Furthermore, in the absence of school, women entrepreneurs bear the majority of the burden of family care. Women also take on a greater proportion of housework. This creates a perfect storm for women entrepreneurs. And yet at the same time, COVID-19 has presented some catalyzing changes, such as acceptance of remote working models, acceleration in the use of digital channels, both on the demand and the supply sides, and a shift towards digital versus physical interaction, all of which have the potential to level the playing field, especially for women. And we have an impressive lineup of speakers at this panel. In fact, we have a group of very successful women who will share with us their experiences in doing business despite COVID-19 challenges. They will help us understand the impact and challenges and opportunities that COVID-19 has triggered for women entrepreneurs. Now, let me introduce our first speaker today. Our first speaker is Dr. Anne Huddock. She is the president and CIO of Counterpart International. She brings more than 25 years of international development experience. She leads the organization, the mission of which is to promote civic participation and government accountability. Before joining Counterpart in 2017, Dr. Huddock worked at Plan International USA, where she led the expansion of the international program portfolio and served as vice chair of a Plan Federation Program Directors Forum. She was previously also managing director at DAI and also served as deputy country representative and the active country representative for the Asia Foundation in Hanoi, Vietnam. Dr. Huddock also served as head of democracy and governance at World Learning in Washington and a special assistant to the US Undersecretary of State for Global Affairs, covering the democracy, human rights, and labor portfolio. Dr. Hanak, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with all of you today. And I'm really thrilled to be on this panel with so many renowned women and to be a part of this really important and 10th anniversary of the CATF. So thank you for allowing me a few minutes just to share some reflections. And I think it's really important. You framed the issue so well at the beginning. And I really think it's important for us as we talk about moving beyond the pandemic and the post-pandemic to do exactly what you said, is to think about what are some of the galvanizing changes that have happened that we need to hold on to. Because we see this very often when there's civil strife or a war of some kind, women will find spaces to be able to navigate. But then when reconstruction happens, those spaces often close back down. And I believe it could be the same with the pandemic, that some of the spaces that women are operating in now, when we see the recovery efforts, if we're not very deliberate about it, some of the very good changes that are being made could actually be taken away. And so I wanted to focus my remarks just briefly, and then I have a short video to share with you just to, I hope, inspire you a bit from some of the experiences from women entrepreneurs from around the world. And you know, the Counterpart International has an institute within us called the Women Lead Institute. And this institute has been going for more than 40 years. And it has brought together from around the globe women entrepreneurs who are either social entrepreneurs working in their communities to try and affect change, or they're running a business. And the power of this is manyfold. But one of the most important things is it's a global network. And it's a global network of solidarity. And what we saw when the pandemic happened was many of these women, and it's very, very similar story that you all here in Central Asia will be very familiar with, is the small grassroots efforts they were making or the national efforts they were making really became threatened because of all the challenges they faced with COVID. And so small assistance made such a huge difference. Small grants of $500,000, $1,000, $500 or $1,000, you know, could make all the difference to keeping an operation open and to allowing women to continue their business. And so I think it's important that we, as much as we need massive recovery efforts, we also keep thinking about what are the small things that we can do? What are the small steps that will really benefit some women most powerfully? Because if you look at the activities, particularly for women entrepreneurs, it's not just that woman's business that's succeeding, but generally speaking, when that business succeeds, the family succeeds, the community succeeds, the country succeeds. And those ripple effects, those are the things that are going to take us out of this pandemic and into not going back to how we were, but into a rebuilding, into, I think, something better. And so there are three things that I think are very important, that were very important before the pandemic, that have been critically important to helping entrepreneurs survive during the pandemic. And I believe these three things will be some of the most important things that we'll need to focus on post-pandemic. And the first I've already mentioned, and that is networks. I don't believe that you can be successful in this day and age without being part of multiple networks. And for sure, women entrepreneurs have been very, very networked, you know, and I think when you look at the successes, you will find women who have helped other women, and they have been helped themselves by other women. And if during a pandemic, when so many things were shutting down, when so many avenues for engagement, just even physical proximity to one another was shut down, it was those networks, and it continues to be those networks that give people the ability to continue to operate or find new ways to operate. The second thing is something that's very dear to Counterpart's origins, and that is unlikely partnerships. You know, if you look at the entrepreneurs who've been successful, whether it's a restaurant or some kind of business that operated one way during pre-pandemic and is now having to rethink everything, often what has helped them is a very unlikely partnership, something they didn't think of. And I say it's close to our heart at Counterpart because we were founded by a priest and a movie star. And that's like the unlikeliest partnership you can think of. But these two came together in the South Pacific, and they started, the priest was in the community doing community development work. The Australian movie star was there filming a movie, and she saw the good work, and she, long before there was eBay or thrift shops or any of these other websites, she sold her clothes from the movie set to be able to fund the community development work. And from those humble beginnings, we grew Counterpart. And I think that unlikely partnership is something we all have to seek out, not just looking at what's in front of us. And lastly, I would say something that I see already with this forum, there's solidarity. One of the most important ingredients for people to survive any kind of crisis, as we know, is that feeling of solidarity. And it's very important in the communities to have solidarity, but I think right now what we really need is global solidarity. And this global network, regional networks are absolutely foundational. And then we need to expand those into a global network so that more opportunities can be created. And where there's a struggle in one particular geographic area, by networking and showing solidarity, I think it can take us forward. We saw this with the women, the alumni of our program. As soon as the pandemic happened, many of these people were thinking, about how to keep their business open. And many of them just needed to survive to see another day. And so we had alumni sessions where they came on a screen just like this, those who had connectivity, and just the ability to see another woman's face and hear her story and talk gave them that hope and gave them that, I think, bravery to go forward another day and to help each other find solutions. So let me pause there, and I have just a very short video to show you. I hope that will inspire you and really frame the rest of, I think, the remarks.
When you are able to transform a woman, you have transformed a family, you have transformed a society, and you have transformed the world.
The Women Lead Institute began more than 40 years ago, and it was a really dynamic organization that did lots of work around the world with women to help them take control of their own lives in every aspect of their life. For Counterpart, because women are so central to the communities where we work, it made perfect sense for us to take them under our umbrella when they were looking for a new home.
WLI's flagship program is called Global Women in Management, Advancing Women's Economic Opportunities, or GWIM for short. And those workshops are typically 3 to 4 weeks in length. They include all the kinds of things that you would associate with either starting a business yourself or teaching other women how to start a business or a social enterprise.
Before I came for GWIM 6 years ago, I was doing fundraising for the organization. I knew nothing about professional fundraising until I came to GWIM. GWIM 60 revolutionized everything about fundraising for me.
It strengthens our belief in our ability to succeed.
The high point for me was meeting a lot of other women. I actually met a lady from the Philippines. They were into duck raising, helped them to raise money internally. So when I got back here to Nigeria, I told our women, I said, look, yes, we will get funders, but we can also do something for ourselves. We went into raising turkeys, raising pigs, doing chicken. So the women were employed, and then we had money to go about our daily business. When we started 6 years ago, we just had a 12-member team. We are now 40 team members. So we've grown, we've expanded, we are more stable, we are more self-reliant. So we have really moved forward.
We've reached in total over 6,000 women. Many go on to launch their own non-governmental organization. Many have run for office and been elected to office. Many go on to start a business or social enterprise. But the beauty of it is they all attribute those steps to starting at the workshop they attended.
I learned that being ambitious is not at all negative. It kind of transformed the way I looked at myself. Since the workshop, I have been leading an Indonesian delegation to South by Southwest, and now I'm working as one of the writers for National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence.
The right thing for you.
I am more empowered of voicing my opinion. Before, I was kind of always, I just let the men talk. Now I am more empowered and I have more reasons to speak up, because I know when I speak up, the next generation will look up to me and then they will start to speak up as well. So it can change the whole norms.
We found an incredible ripple effect. Tens of thousands of women have been reached who haven't had the opportunity to actually take the training themselves, but are indirect beneficiaries of that training. So this kind of multiplier effect is exactly the type of thing that we look for as a funder.
The way it was organized made us to learn a lot of things within just 1 week. The workshop was really interactive, giving you exercises to discover the leader in you. And we were put into teams to work together. So we build relationships in those teams that we still communicate with. When I came back, I said I needed to build up my career and I needed to do something where I needed a change, and I went for it. And I got it, very happy for the motivation I got from them. The lesson that I learned from the African Women Leadership Workshop has transformed my life.
By creating a space for women to grow as leaders, you're really creating a foundation for not just those women and their organizations to thrive, but for those communities and actually for the countries to thrive. So it's a really important investment, because you need to make sure that where you put your money, you're going to see a result. And time after time, the evidence shows that investing in women makes really good business sense.
It was team building, it was networking and building relationships.
To be able to stay connected and have an initiative together, it's amazing. It's like, it won't happen if it's not because of the workshop.
And we keep moving forward because we are still in relationship with the GWIM team and other GWIM alumni. And we are doing other things together. We are collaborating, we are learning from each other, and we have become like a big family together.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to be here, and I'm really, really wishing you success for the rest of the forum.
Thank you so very much. It was a great video, so thanks a lot for sharing. And I've also taken note of the 3 points that you brought to our attention: regional networks, unlikely partnerships, and I think the example that you gave me is clearly very inspiring. And of course, global solidarity. I do recognize and I very much appreciate the fact that you are with us today, despite the fact that it's ungodly hour where you are. I know you are very eager to disconnect. So, but before you do, I'd like to pose one question, and that is, do you believe that the creativity that is now triggered because of the COVID-19 pandemic will lead to permanent changes? Do you think that there will be more balance between social and economic objectives of different companies? How do you see it, given your very close connections to the roots and grassroots of various women organizations? Over to you.
Thank you. That's such an excellent question. And let me assure you, I'm definitely not eager to disconnect. I would get up at any hour of the night to join this really impressive panel and to be part of such an important conversation. So really, it's an honor for me to be here. I think it's up to us how things are going to go forward with the pandemic and the recovery. I will say I'm more optimistic on the economic side than I am on the social side. And I say that sitting here before you as a CEO and also a mother of 4 children. And I, have all the benefits that I could possibly have. And I'm struggling, to balance all the things that I need to balance. And so I wake up every day humbled by what I see with the women around the globe who are less connected, less resourced, less capable because of the assets they have or don't have. And I think if we don't invest now in getting that social balance, you said it at the beginning, women bearing really the brunt of the domestic work and not having the partners to take up, those loads. During a pandemic, it becomes, you see how many women are leaving the workforce right now, how many women's businesses are closing. That's, yes, because of economic challenges, but it is predominantly because of the social challenges that they are struggling to balance. And so unless we become very cognizant of that, which was an issue well before COVID, it's been an issue since the beginning of time. But now it becomes so critical because I think what you will see is because of those social issues, there will be a disproportionate effect on women entrepreneurs and women in the workforce. And so I think we have to, of course, prioritize economic recovery, but as the centerpiece of that, I think we have to address the social disparities that, again, have been there all along, but have just become so pronounced because of COVID.
Thank you so much. And actually, it's a perfect transition to our second speaker, Nadira Mansurova, who is the Regional Head of and Associate Director at European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, responsible for small and medium enterprises, business advice, development and finance in Central Asia and Mongolia. Before joining EBRD in 2001, Nadira has held various positions in Central Asia before moving to the bank's headquarters in London. Nadira was also posted to Kazakhstan to head the SME finance and development team in Central Asia and Mongolia and to facilitate and ensure SME businesses delivery. Nadira holds a master's in finance. Nadira, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Let me first of all welcome everybody to today's conversation and say a huge thank you to the organizers for inviting me. It's an absolute privilege and honor to be among these distinguished speakers. And I just want to probably immediately connect to what Anne was saying, that, for us, the most important thing that we do in our work within the SMEs is empowerment of women and making sure there are equal opportunities created for women that are operating within the SME space. Of course, we're also focusing on other areas such as green economy and digitalization, which go hand in hand with this big agenda. But because today it's about women, I'll focus on our women dedicated work. I think, I get really, really emotional and biased whenever we have women dedicated sessions. Not because I am a woman, but, when you're in the midst of this work, you can see how amazingly well-structured programs can really empower women who might have been struggling with their everyday activities, the entrepreneurship activities they were either thinking about or just launched. And I just want to say that, despite all the difficulties that COVID brought up, such as increased domestic responsibilities, looking after elderly, young children, and I'm not going to repeat what Anne said, as a mother also, I can say that, I feel privileged that I have all the support and infrastructure around me, but there are days when, I really want to take a big break and, lock myself in a room and think about myself, but unfortunately not many women have that opportunity. And I think, creating these networks, creating the opportunities is really, really important for the changes that you, Raza, mentioned in your question to make sure that they are here to stay. So just to go back to some of the statistics based on the surveys that EBRD conducted, we asked about 800 SMEs to tell us what has been happening with them. And these were all women-led SMEs. And more than 79%, around 80% reported that they had declined sales. And out of this 80%, 10% said they just stopped the work altogether. So it just tells you how huge the impact of this particular crisis was on the women-led businesses. And from our perspective, we started immediately thinking about what else could we do. So within our normal or standard toolbox of activities, what we do as the bank, we provide access to finance. We make sure that we provide access to know-how and bringing all the knowledge possible. But also, more importantly, we create a lot of policy discussion around this area. So we focus on gender strategies, and we work on different policies, and we comment on the legislation to make sure that women's rights are there and that they're addressed properly. And just to go back in the history, just to say that, we started our Women in Business program in 2014 in Turkey, which then very quickly spread out because of its high success rate. Thanks to our Women in Business program, which supports women across the countries in which we operate, we managed to have a huge impact on these businesses that decided to work with us under our programs. More than 65% of the women-led businesses reported increase in sales. And then they created a lot of workspace. So not only they were growing themselves, but they were helping the communities around them to grow, and by creating jobs and creating the welfare. So from our perspective, gender work that we've been doing has been really successful in Central Asia. We've done a lot in Kazakhstan, thanks to the support from the Kazakh government, who is our key donor in Kazakhstan in supporting women that are trying to do a business. In the rest of Central Asia, we work with the European Union, with the Swiss government through their agency SECO, with the Japanese government, with the US government, and with the multitude of donors who support our activities through a donor fund called the WeFi, Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative. And we're very proud to say that all our activities are indeed focusing around those aspects that Anne mentioned, such as creating networks, creating solidarity, and creating unlikely partnerships. The way we do it, we have mentorship programs. So we match the smaller companies with slightly larger companies. And sometimes these mentors that we select are not necessarily women. They could be male entrepreneurs who have been successful in a certain area. And these partnerships, the so-called unlikely partnerships, create amazing results because, I've heard myself how women were saying, look, I was at the brink of tears when I didn't know how to move my small business forward. I felt like I was stuck. But having this one conversation with another person just gave me this horde of ideas, and now I'm moving forward, and I can feel like I have this positive energy, and I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to push forward. So definitely this mentoring program has proven to be a huge success on our side, and we're expanding it to Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. In fact, in December, we will be launching our WeFi program in Uzbekistan because we're already bringing together the financing and the knowledge sharing tools together to make them available as one-stop shop place for the women entrepreneurs. What I want to say that, despite all the challenges that we're trying to address, I think the degree of women involvement in entrepreneurship remains quite low. Across Central Asia, it's only about a quarter of enterprises that are led by women. So there is definitely a lot of work still to be done on our side and on the side of our partners. But I also want to say that it is so much worth investing into this area because despite the challenges that the women are facing, I think probably thanks to the challenges that women are facing, the women are really resilient and they're very adaptable and they are really flexible and open to learning. And the most importantly, despite all these things that we sometimes have, like we really like to doubt ourselves, second guess ourselves, question ourselves, we're also very open to share the amazing ideas, across the table, and then, harness these opportunities and move forward. Of course, the crisis also proven that, because the women-led enterprises, they tend to be of a smaller size, and they are in the sectors such as services, tourism, education. These are the ones to be hit the first, and that's why from our side as the bank, we started addressing these groups that were hit the most. So what we've done, we organized different trainings and webinars and seminars to create those connections, and also to say, look, you're not the one that's suffering on your own. There is a whole sector that's going under, but here are the things that you could do on your side. And some of the first things that we've done, we turned our interventions into a virtual format so that women didn't feel that they were disconnected from the support that they used to have in our face. And then also what we've done is to say, look, this is an amazing opportunity for you to reconsider some of the things that for which you didn't probably have time. Like, let's look into digitalization. Let's look into resource efficiency. Let's look into how you could conduct your business going forward to make it more sustainable. So I don't want to go into the numbers because numbers sound quite boring, but from our perspective, just to say that thousands and thousands of women benefited from our programs, from different toolboxes that we have across Central Asia. There were millions in solidarity package that were channeled through our partner institutions, local banks that also participate in our program. And here I want to say a huge thank you to our partner banks, because they also embraced the idea. Not only they decided to support the women through financing, but they really undertook a lot of time to invest into themselves, to change their processes, to learn how to properly provide the financing to women, how to support them through non-financial means. So the partner banks also did a humongous work on their side to support the women throughout the crisis. So for us, there are lots of aspects which we're trying to tackle through different tools, starting from micro enterprises, going all the way to the policy areas on which we're working. And in that, of course, we're not alone. And I would like to take a second to say a huge thank you to all partners that we work with, the chambers of commerce, the different local stakeholders, the women associations, and there is a myriad of organizations that we're partnering with to make sure that this work happens. And I think I'd like to say a couple of good news, that our Kazakhstan program has been just extended for another 5 years because it has been so successful. We just had the approval for the second round of the Wi-Fi program. We're extending our program in Mongolia thanks to the European Union. And also, I'm sure most of you heard that the EBRD has for the first time a female president. Madame Odile Rino Basson, we're very proud of that fact, and we really hope that will bring the different type of changes to the institution, and the gender agenda will be, as strong as ever. So just to round up by saying that absolutely agree with the fact that we should continue to do the amazing job that we're doing, but probably do even more, because there's a lot of room for improvement. Keeping connections, making sure that we provide this opportunity to share experience remains key. Access to finance is an absolute must, because we need to focus on growing these businesses and make sure that they have the financing whenever they need it the most. And just to round this my speech up, I'd like to also put a short video with examples of what we do, so that you can see firsthand from this video what we've done this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadira. It was a fantastic video, and I have to say I got inspired to go and check out some of the designs that that were promoted in this particular video. I have to say that despite the numbers that you cited at the start of your presentation, and I think both are very important, despite the and clearly they show that women were disproportionately affected by COVID. And I appreciate the fact that you do these kind of surveys, because it's important that we speak facts and we have evidence-based solutions. There is a lot of disinformation currently surrounding COVID, so it's important that we actually bring the numbers and statistics. And I was also particularly excited that you touched upon the issue of mentorship. Some women achieve more, and then they're encouraged to see more, then they're encouraged to hope for more, and that other people see more in them than they actually see at that particular moment in themselves. So it is something that I think we will be touching upon in the discussion once we conclude with our presentation. Since you mentioned a couple of times the European Union, I'm actually very pleased now to introduce our next speaker, Silvia Petropoulou, who is the project manager at the EU delegation in Kazakhstan. She's an expert of the European Commission. She had a number of posts in various departments and director generals of the European Commission. And without further ado, Silvia, the screen is over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Also, on behalf of the EU delegation to Kazakhstan, I must say that it's a real pleasure to me to be here today to participate in this extremely relevant, extremely important discussion on this extremely important topic of women entrepreneurship. We're all aware of the devastating effects which the COVID-19 pandemic is having on the world's economies, and in particular on the serious threats that it poses to women's employment and livelihoods as it deepens pre-existing inequalities and exposes cracks in social, political, and economic systems. Today, I would like to focus on a number of recommendations. I would like to share with you a number of recommendations which the European Union and the UN came up with at the end of a roundtable on gender equality and COVID-19 response, which took place this summer. I will not list them all, but I will simply concentrate on those which I believe are the most important and the most relevant to today's discussion. So one of the main recommendations is the need to design and implement gender-responsive crisis responses with long-term solutions and, of course, in line within the international labor standards. A second recommendation is to invest in universal gender-responsive social protection, which includes also access to quality healthcare. A third recommendation is to mitigate the pandemic's impact on employment, with measures which reach out women-owned macro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. A fifth recommendation is to allocate additional resources to address discrimination and violence against women and girls in COVID-19 response plans. A sixth recommendation is to invite business to sign, and I do believe that this one is among the most important for today's discussion, invite business to sign and implement the women's empowerment principles that foster responsive business conduct. A seventh recommendation has to do with collection and reporting on gender statistics and sex disaggregated data to inform crisis response and recovery plans. And the eighth recommendation, which I also believe is extremely important to today's discussion, is to ensure that gender equality is at the core of learning and skills development and that no girls are left behind. So as you can see, these recommendations were made for the EU member states and for the G7 countries as drivers of change, and of course have been also incorporated in the EU recovery plan, which the EU has launched to respond to the COVID-19 crisis within its member states with an overall allocation of almost 700 billion euros. But I truly believe that they can also, and they actually must be applied also to the EU's partner countries, to our cooperation policy with our partner countries. In particular, when it comes to Central Asia, we are teaming up with international financial institutions, so with the EBRD. Nodira is one of our key partners, but also with the European Investment Bank, with the World Bank, and with the Asian Development Bank, to make sure that our collective efforts can help addressing these priorities, and that women entrepreneurship can be preserved, and if possible, also fostered by this pandemic, pushed ahead because of this pandemic. When it comes also to the specific and particular aspect of trade, I also want to mention that we have at the moment a regional project, Ready for Trade, which is implemented by our partners, the International Trade Center, and Alina will shortly present in details this project, which also addresses some of those challenges. In particular, when it comes to e-commerce. The e-commerce channels are particularly relevant for women and micro enterprises, and in Central Asia, this is also an issue which we would like to promote, as well as trade facilitation measures and understanding of trade requirements are very crucial for successful integration of women in regional integration of trade. And of course, our project will be also looking into these issues. Just as a conclusion, I would like to say that this current situation presents, of course, a number of challenges, but I think that ultimately it should give us more opportunities to team up, to work together. And I would like also to refer to what Anne said at the beginning of this presentation, as well as Nodira. It's important now more than ever to create a network, to work together, international partners, the European Union, the UN, the international financial institutions, but also the civil society. It's important to reach out to the civil society, to companies, to the private sector on the ground, in order to bring about sustainable results, which can be continued, of course, to be promoted also at the end of this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia. And I'm really pleased with the way that our conversation is going, because it seems that we seem to be amplifying the messages of the previous speakers. That clearly shows that we all think along the same along the same lines. The emphasis might be slightly different, but clearly the messages that you brought to the fore from networks, from the importance of gender responsive strategies in response to the current pandemic, of also the emphasis on equality and investment in women, is something that was clearly underlined by our previous speakers. So thank you so much, Sylvia. And now I would like to turn to Alina Fetisova. Alina Fetisova is an Associate Program Officer in the Trade Facilitation Team of International Trade Center. She specializes in providing technical assistance in the area of trade facilitation, trade policy, and regulatory cooperation in Central Asia, Africa, and Southeast Asia. She is also working on gender-sensitive trade facilitation reforms, supporting the advocacy of women entrepreneurs and associations for their rights, and assisting them to strengthen their technical knowledge on cross-border trade. Prior to joining the ITC, Alina worked for the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, focusing on project trade-related facilitation and regulatory standards. She holds a master's degree in international affairs from the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva. Alina, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen with you. Perfect. Well, good afternoon, dear participants, dear panelists. Very happy to be here today with you. I would like to thank USAID for inviting us to this panel and organizing this important session, and of course, all of you for joining it. As you may know, ITC is an agency with the main mandate to support SMEs, and we do pay special attention to participation of women enterprises in international trade. So why is it so important to bring women into international trade? Actually, women's participation in trade brings important macroeconomic benefits. Women represent globally 50% of the world's working age population, but they only generate 37% of GDP. At the same time, globally, 40% of SMEs are owned by women, and SMEs account for almost 80% of jobs around the world. So what can be done to bridge this gap? Actually, 28 trillion of US dollars, or 26% of additional annual GDP, could be added in 2025 if we made sure that women play an identical role in labor markets compared to men's. And 240 million workers could be added to the world labor force in 2025 by closing the gender gap in the economy. What does this mean for Central Asia? Actually, for Central Asia, this means $400 million of GDP growth, both for Eastern Europe and Central Asia region. Now, of course, we have to say that COVID-19 brought many new challenges and dynamics to international trade, and ITC analyzed those effects. And many of those challenges, they will hurdle reaching this ambitious scenario that I showed in the previous slides. So ITC analyzed this type of effects, and you can see on the slide one of our publication, which is also available online for more details. But I would like to focus on the main findings. And the main findings of this research showed us that COVID-19, as other speakers were saying, did strongly impact small and women-led businesses. More than 60% of SMEs were strongly affected by COVID-19 compared to 43% of large firms. 20% of SMEs are actually at risk of shutting down permanently. And also COVID-19 strongly affected 64% of women-led firms compared with 52% of men-led companies. So indeed, women were largely affected by COVID-19. And I think we can say that COVID-19 in some way did caught the world off guard. We were not prepared for this kind of challenges. But even though the scenario doesn't look that positive, the good news is that SMEs are actually adapting quicker to this new normal and can benefit from this agility. 21% of small businesses were very much agile in their response to the crisis compared to 16% of larger firms. And the most agile firms managed to transform themselves to fit this new situation by creating novel products such as designer masks or rapid testing technologies. And if anything, what we can be sure about is that this new normal that we're adapting to, it has to be more resilient in the future, digital, inclusive, and sustainable. That's how we can mitigate impact of some other potential crises that we could face in the future. And SMEs need to continue to be adaptive to this kind of challenges. Now, COVID-19 could actually provide new opportunities for women entrepreneurs. Today, other speakers mentioned that work-home duty balance could be a bit difficult because of taking care of children, elderly people. But at the same time, online management tools can actually help a lot women to manage their business at the distance in a better way. There are also now more opportunities for B2Bs and client meetings through online means. And this is due to all those events that we're having now online, including this forum. So women start to use more online channels to meet new clients and to widen their opportunities out there in the global networks. Of course, as we saw, many shops were closed, and now e-commerce channels are thriving even more than usual, providing also a gender-neutral platform for trade operations where women can feel comfortable authorizing their trade operations, working with various stakeholders, and remaining online. Also, COVID-19 provides some important cost-saving opportunities. Again, due to conducting business through online means, you can better manage your business strategy, you can better conduct meetings online and save on many costs of travel, other associated logistic costs that you had before for conducting meetings in person. And of course, there are more marketing options through social media. Now everybody is sitting all over the web, everybody is online, so you can actually try to attract more clients through publishing your goods, through marketing yourself through all these social media channels. Now, of course, women businesses voice various needs for their growth and export, and those needs are even more prominent and important now and during the pandemic. Of course, to be successful, you need to have good production techniques. You need to know how to manage this in a cost-efficient way. you need to have access to finance. You need to work with financial instruments to get your loans. And I'm very happy to hear how BRD is supporting women on that. At the same time, you need support for design and marketing of your goods, to study the consumer preferences, to study the demand of other markets with which you'd like to trade. So of course, design and marketing skills become essential. B2B, as already mentioned, it's very important, especially in COVID-19, find new partners, build your network, try to work together to ensure sustainability of your business. And of course, e-commerce channels and payment solutions associated with those e-commerce channels. It's important for women to understand how to market their goods through these e-commerce channels, how to run e-commerce channels, and what could be the payment solutions they could use both for their clients and for themselves. So of course, if you imagine yourself on the place of women entrepreneur, all these issues are very much important to you, and we do hear about them a lot. However, something that we forget is expert management issues are also equally important. As a woman entrepreneur who wants to go to regional international market, you need to understand how export, import, transit procedures work. You need to be aware of duties and fees and charges who will apply to your goods in order to comply with them, and also establish right pricing strategy. Certification, labeling, packaging requirements are often an important hurdle for efficient clearance of your goods. And just during this pandemic time, we heard from one of our beneficiaries who was actually very agile, was one of our beneficiaries in Afghanistan who adapted her production of handicrafts to production of sanitary masks. And she even managed to find a client in France who was interested to buy her consignment. However, what happened was that her packaging that she prepared for this mask didn't comply with EU standards and requirements in the packaging. And unfortunately, her business deal didn't go through. So these details that sometimes we don't focus that much on could be essential for conducting a successful business transaction. And of course, transport and logistics associated issues are very important. What mean of transport to use, what is a good transport company to contract with, and how can you manage the all logistics issues around this. It's true that sometimes you can give this to a broker or some other company, but at the same time, you need to understand yourself how are these things being run to make sure there is no mismanagement of that. And that's where data and information comes very important for you to know what is changing right now in the market. What is changing in the border procedures? And this is even more important because of numerous challenges and market closures which happen because of COVID-19. Now, it's true that those things are often exacerbated because women traders often face more challenges compared to men. Those challenges are connected, for example, with slightly higher participation in informal cross-border trade. And of course, this exposes women to different risks at the border, insecurity challenges, and at the same time, it doesn't give them access to some important instruments which are available in the formal economy, such as access to credit and etc. Lack of information and knowledge about cross-border trade regulations and procedures. It's true that sometimes women have less access to this type of information, and that's why they're disadvantaged compared to men. Limited women representation in public institutions, which are related to trade, such as ministries, chambers of commerce, national representation committees. Indeed, if these committees, if these platforms don't have women representation, if women's voices are not heard, it's difficult to design gender-sensitive reforms and support participation of women in trade activities. Lack of gender-segregated data, which was already mentioned today, is crucial to design those reforms which actually correspond to current needs of women. And that's why the collection of this data is crucial. And last but not least, sometimes we feel lack of confidence from some women to participate in trade activities and public policy discussions. And that's where those women leaders, strong examples and role models are very important to show these women that everything is possible and that they can take part in discussion at different levels, and that we can boost their confidence through different training and coaching. So here we're very happy that through support of European Union, we have a new Run Ready for Trade Central Asia project, which started in January this year. And this project is pretty complex. There are many components, but I would like just to briefly focus today on main components which are relevant specifically for women participation in trade. And first of them is connected to increasing transparency of trade procedures. As I mentioned before, access to information is crucial for successful trade activities of women entrepreneurs. And Central Asia project will help women entrepreneurs to get this access to information through trade portals, which provides very detailed step-by-step description of export, import, transit formalities for specific goods with specific mode of transport, with all the associated documents, fees, charges, which are required to conduct this export or import transaction for entrepreneurs. And it's even more important that these portals will be created in all Central Asian countries. It's already functioning in Tajikistan since April 2019 with support of SECO. And now we're establishing them in other 4 countries and also in Afghanistan. So there will be also opportunity to compare different formalities and even find solutions for simplifying them. And of course, very important for women traders, there will be inquiry point mechanism where actually women entrepreneurs can ask questions to relevant border agencies about any issue they might have with this border process. Now, of course, transparency is important, but understanding and compliance with these requirements could be quite complex. So we have a dedicated component on enhancing SME capacity to comply with cross-border requirements, where we will have a twofold approach. On the one hand, we will be providing online e-curriculum for SMEs with more than 20 training modules on different export and import-related issues. And at the same time, as a baseline, we will also complement it with on-the-job coaching, which is essentially one-to-one, very nuanced advisory service, which is delivered at the premises of SME, and where the expert is explaining and trying to solve the problems related to this particular SME, be it logistics, be it packaging, be it Incoterms, or anything related to the export process of the SME. And of course, very importantly, enabling cross-border e-commerce. Here I have to say that e-commerce is, of course, one of the most attractive distribution channels for women traders. So this component will aim to support 200 SMEs with a specific focus on women entrepreneurs to increase their sales through online channels. And there will be specific focus on handicraft, textile, and agribusiness sector, which are also very often women-led. And this will be done through building e-commerce skills, including analyzing products, analyzing market opportunities, developing positioning strategies, development of content for products online, and also looking at how to list these products on the marketplaces, how to develop your e-commerce website, and how to implement payment and logistics solutions associated with it. And of course, in parallel to this, there will be also the work on e-commerce ecosystems of the country. We will be working on establishing e-commerce strategies. We'll be looking in the partnerships with marketplaces and online payment firms to provide some suitable local international platforms for those SMEs. So all those things are awaiting for you, and I hope you will be interested to join this call for application for e-commerce components. And very last thing, we're extremely happy to have a dedicated component on women participation in trade in this Ready for Trade Central Asia project. And there we have threefold objectives. It's very much trade facilitation related. One is about making border environment more gender conducive. And this will be done through raising awareness of customs and border officials on gender-specific challenges. And we hope that this training, both on theory and on practical implication of gender in border procedures, will help customs officers to create this environment for women, and it would bring good practices in their daily work. Now, of course, gender-related data is very important for informing gender-sensitive policy making, and we will be working and assessing the status of try to come up with recommendations how to improve these practices, as well as provide training to statistics agencies and other relevant agencies to guide them on the way forward in this respect. And of course, our dear women entrepreneurs, we would like to work with you to empower you through participation in trade, to enhancing both your confidence and knowledge of trade procedures, of trade associated issues, to help you integrate into new markets. And for this, we are now conducting 3 types of surveys to assess the needs of women traders or those women who would like to be involved in trade. We're conducting survey for business and civil society associations and international organizations, also to get their talk of the issue. And we're conducting survey for government agencies and agencies also working in National Representation Committee. So please, those of you probably who already contacted, thank you so much for participation. This was done through Business Women Association in Central Asian countries. But those of you who are interested to participate, please do. I hope this presentation will be shared with you, or feel free to contact me, because your opinion, your voice is extremely important for us to design the intervention in the most suitable way in these 3 next years to come on this project. Thank you so much for your attention, and happy to hear your questions.
Elena, thank you so much for your great presentation. I think many participants will appreciate the practicality of it. I think the 6 pillars are clearly meant to promote and empower women traders, and I think they focus on the areas where we definitely need some additional tips. I already can alert you to the fact that there was interest in knowing when these portals will be opened in different Central Asian countries. So in the subsequent discussion, I will pose a question. So please be prepared to briefly speak about when we will have individual country-specific portals opened up. And now, again, I probably should thank Alfia for making sure that the order of speakers is listed in this particular way, because you did speak about logistics, you did speak about transport, and now I'm actually looking at Gayana de Alves, who is the owner of many very impressive titles, but one of them is Global Women in Logistics and Transport Chairperson. I have to admit I had to Google because I wouldn't even know what these acronyms stand for. And she's also founding chairperson of the and advisor of Women in Logistics and Transport in Sri Lanka, and a board member of WCIC. And Gayani, we look forward to your presentation. The screen is yours.
Okay. Let me share the presentation. Okay, good day to all of you. Thank you so much for inviting me for this very interesting panel. And this is my first panel that I have been talking, especially in Central Asia. Congratulations for organizing the Central Asia Trade Forum for the 10th consecutive time. And it's a privilege and an honor to be part of this. Thank you so much. So how I would talk about this, I'll first talk about in our industry, the logistics and transport industry, and what are the challenges that we as women have. And then I will also talk about the organization that we globally that we are driving, the Women in Logistics and Transport, and how we drive this agenda to create gender diversity in the industry, like all of you spoke about specific areas. So how it can impact the economic empowerment of women. So as you may already know, our global market value of the logistics and transport industry is about $6.6 trillion. It's a very growing industry. I mean, the COVID pandemic, unfortunately, became a pandemic because of logistics, because the movement enabled the virus to spread around the world. But it is, I think, up to us as logisticians and supply chain professionals, and it is up to get us out of the wood, and that is what the logistics and supply chain professionals are really working on, trying to get the vaccine, when it is ready to be distributed. Already, the Russian vaccine has already gone to India in the initial stages. So how we're going to take it around the world, and we can have a face-to-face session very soon, right? So it is a growing industry, we all know that. And it is actually, like many other industries, is male dominated, mainly because it's a high physical effort and very long working hours. Alina also spoke about how the trade industry, the challenges that women have to face at border control agencies, and where many trade related challenges that women have. So this actually has given a perception to women that our industry is very female unfriendly. So that was a huge challenge for us in all the countries. As we all know, as per the Global Gender Gap Report 2020 reveals that gender parity will not be attained for 95 years, which is very unfortunate. It will not happen during our lifetime at least. But having said that, we should not be disheartened. I think all of us collectively, whatever the initiatives that we are trying to do to make this world a gender parity world, will help us to at least bridge this gap. And I must say, I just was looking through the gender gap report data, and Eastern Europe and Central Asia, it'll be a little bit more than what the global average is. So situation is not that good. But having said that, all these barriers are preventing not only in our industry, but basically most of you spoke about the societal factors, especially during COVID situations, and the various policy inconsistencies, incoherence in countries, and outdated laws. Especially, I must say, in our country also, there are in certain industries, especially our port industry, women cannot work after 6 hours, so 6 o'clock. So therefore, not very women are taken into employment in the operational area. So that is, again, even if you want to do, you cannot do that. So there are certain policy inconsistencies in our sector, in most countries, where it prevents women getting into the industry. And even the women entrepreneurs who are engaged in the logistics and transport industry, there are challenges that most of you spoke about, previous speakers, about the access to markets, access to finance, and also access to know-how. That is another biggest challenge, and access to information and data. So those are many challenges that prevents us. And also the wage gaps, sexual harassment and discrimination in public transport, and various other the agencies with whom we deal with, and organizations, and suboptimal facilities and infrastructure, and of course unconscious biases in the various forms. And we as women also sometimes, more than the male folks, we also have our own inhibitions, and we don't conquer our mind. I think that is another challenge that we have in getting more women into the labor force participation. But I always think, even COVID, everybody thinks as a crisis situation, but in any crisis situation, there are opportunities as well, because only if you look at it in a positive way that we can come out of it as well. So mainly the opportunities that we as women, not only women and men as well, because this industry is a growing industry, and we see by 2022, the industry is expected to grow by $12.3 trillion at a CAGR of 3.48%, as per the logistics market outlook data. So, I mean, the industry is growing, and there is so much opportunity, and especially because of the COVID situation, a lot of congestion happens in the ports, and the country supplies are getting disrupted. The demand has come down, the discretionary items, people are, conscious of that, and they are very focused on their buying habits. So yes, the trade has slowed down a little bit, but I feel personally, this is my opinion, soon after the vaccine slowly gets into the countries, and by next year, and what I read as per research also, there would be a boom in the industry, despite the challenges that we have gone through. So there will be opportunities for the logistics industry. And also, COVID, actually, every country, everywhere, people are talking about automation and digitalization. And I would say COVID was although it is a bad thing to happen to the whole world, but I think it became a blessing in disguise, and it expedited a lot of these initiatives that countries and companies wanted to do. So in Sri Lanka, for instance, in our port and our customs and the border control agencies, we had lots of paperwork, and digitalization was on the cards. But with COVID, I think electronic delivery orders and various other digitization of processes and digitalization has really fast-tracked. And also our tea auction, which is the oldest in the world, 150-year-old tea industry, 137-year-old tea auction became online. These are good things that happened during COVID, and that has really coconut exchange, tea exchange, everything in Sri Lanka became digitalized, and now we are moving into that direction. So, and one of our private terminal operators have signed up with a partnership with with Maersk on blockchain technology. So good things are happening in the industry, which is a great equalizer for women, I would say, because you don't need to physically be there, although you have restrictions. Now you, with automation and digitalization, the physical effort, and you can work remotely. All these are going to help for the women in our industry. And also the World Bank report talks about the trade liberalization. More you liberalize trade, more gender equality that you have. So most countries during COVID, now there was a little bit, especially in Sri Lanka, some of the imports have been stopped again to manage our exchange rate fluctuations and various issues that we have in the balance of payment. But very soon it's going to be a temporary situation. But I think what is going to happen is more and more countries are moving in that direction, and women having more emotional quotient, higher emotional quotient, like Jack Ma mentioned, why he employed more women in his companies, because of the, they are the people who really purchase items, and also they are the people who can treat the customers and the clients, the e-commerce industry, the customers and clients with love and care. So he said, I mean, business case is very clear and there are opportunities. So therefore, more and more women will really be, allowed to enter the industry, and the perception that we had about women will go away, I would feel. So all these challenges were there in the industry, but see, Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport that I belong to, which is a 100-year-old organization, 7 years ago, they felt that our industry representation of women is very low, and therefore they felt that they need to engage more women, and they set up in 2013 a Women in Logistics and Transport Forum. So we are a Women in Logistics and Transport Forum, which I belong to now. I head the global organization. It is a forum in Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. So our main objective is to promote the status of women in the supply chain and logistics and transport industries. And like the previous speakers also mentioned, we have a huge global network present in 36 countries with 33,000 members in the Chartered Institute, which is a 100-year-old organization. Our main strength is professional development, career development of women and men, to provide support network and developing the network globally across countries to promote the art and science of logistics and transport and supply chain in the world, to make this world a better place. So as Women in Logistics and Transport, we set up our organization in 2013, and our objective is to be the most sought after for advocacy, professionalism, and empowerment of women in supply chain, logistics, and transport. And we are present, our global, although we are a young organization within CILT, we have 23 branches to date. Last week, we added Madagascar to our family, and many more countries, including Kazakhstan next year. Kazakhstan also will be joining us as part of Central Asia expansion plans. And we are really happy to say we have quite a diverse group of women in various sectors of the logistics industry, that is aviation, maritime, land transport, land and related supply chain, working in our fold in the global organization. So we are present in, we are structured around 7 regions at the moment, in South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, Indian Ocean Islands, Middle East. Africa is divided into 2 areas, Southern and Eastern, and Northern and Western Africa. So all our countries are, structured around these sectors, and new and emerging countries are planning to join us. And we are managed by a governance structure. We are part of CILT, Chartered Institute, as a women's forum. And all activities that we do are managed under the CILT guidance. And this is our global steering committee, and we have advisors, and we have the global vice chairpersons as part of the organization. And our main strategic thrusts are fourfold. We, like earlier also mentioned, mentorship we feel is a very important part in grooming young talent and getting more into the industry. And we also want to empower women, and we look at leadership pipeline development within our Women in Logistics and Transport Forum. And we strongly work with our ladies in different countries on entrepreneurship development. And also we have a focus activity, especially in Africa, where corporate social responsibility to enable more women to commute to workplaces and all that is happening in Africa. So all our work is centered around these 4 strategic thrusts. And globally, we have a very successful mentoring program where we work with university students, young women entrepreneurs, and early level career women. And we work with them with senior ladies in the industry. And we also have a tie-up with UN Women He for She program. Previously, one speaker mentioned about women empowerment principles. WEP is one of the initiatives that we are working with our countries in the companies, where we need more strong male advocates to support our agenda in our country to get more women into the industry. Globally, our industry has about 3% women. Globally, female labor force participation is also very low. So what we really want is to get more women entering the industry, because we see from the universities, more women are getting out, but then there is a leaking pipeline where we don't see many women getting into industry, because they prefer to work at home because of work and manage and work as homemakers at home. So those are some of the challenges because of the societal pressures that we have in our country. So all our initiatives are centered around that. And recently during COVID period, we wanted to really share the knowledge, because CILT being a professional organization, we have access to a lot of knowledge and know-how. So through them, and also WILAT, Women in Logistics and Transport, we initiated a chat series, and especially because of the connectivity, although we are far apart, we were not able to meet in person, but we were able to use technology. Through that, we were able to connect across, and we had a huge followership now on this sharing of knowledge. And we started off with various topics on various challenges that women face, especially while working from home. How do you really manage the personal protective equipment and various safety measures, the consumer behavior patterns, how do you really manage your finance, the marketing aspects in your businesses and all that. So we have identified series of programs which will help men as well as women to support in their affected businesses to revive and manage their operations. And this is one such program which we have crafted, which was developed by Hong Kong, and now we have made it a global program which we are going to launch on the 2nd of December. And this is going to be a global program. Already 18 members have across the globe has taken part. So I would urge you, if anybody from Central Asia is interested, you could reach us through our website, Global WILAT website, and then we will be launching and before 2nd of December. If anybody is interested, you can reach out to me in that industry experts are talking about specific aspects, especially during the COVID. How do you really get them out of the wood? And by acquiring knowledge and access to through know-how. Previously, another speaker mentioned about, the global GDP will increase by an average of 35%, with the full 20% of those gains coming from increased productivity due to gender diversity. So we see the global GDP, there will be an increase in $28 trillion by 2025 if we are able to bridge the gender gap locally in countries. And that is equivalent to the combined economies of the US and China. Just imagine what a phenomenal growth in the global GDP if we all can get together and achieve this objective that we all are working in our own countries. So it is all up to us, I feel. I mean, attitude impacts outcome. If we all think that there is a COVID and all of us are impacted, and when we all are negative, we will not be able to come out of it. I strongly feel positivity will really help. And if you think you can, we will be able to get us out of the wood. So I feel we all of us are in this storm together, but we are in different boats. It's up to us to decide the choices that we make to help our support a network, develop our network, and collaborate with each other, develop our network through our women and as well as our male counterparts to come out of this situation. So let me, with that, conclude. But I strongly believe, as a strong advocate of women empowerment, I feel our gender should not define what you want to do and should not limit one's aspiration. So it's all in your mind. I did forget what your gender is. Just go out there and get on with it and conquer the world. I think that's what we should do. And with that mindset, we will be able to come out of it faster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gayani. I very much appreciate your very positive tone of the presentation. It was really inspiring and encouraging. And although a number of topics that you raised from mentorship to empowerment to leadership are the common themes, I also very much appreciate the fact that you did raise the issue of global corporate social responsibility. And the two answers that you provided, digitalization and automatization, clearly these are the aspects that we will need to be embracing even more closely. Given the late hour, I'm looking immediately at our next speaker, Gulchehra Mahmudova. She is the chairwoman and CIO of Begim, based in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, and her main activity is exclusive distribution of luxury beauty brands in Uzbek market. Previously, she served as advisor to the Ministry of Light Industry of Uzbekistan and also as Director General of Cooperative Tradition, a private company with main activity of commercial day of culture around the world. She has a PhD in art sciences. Gulchehra, the screen is yours.
Hello. I'm really happy to greet all of you on the Trade Forum Central Asia. Also today, it is 10th anniversary. Congratulations, it's a big achievement. Bravo. And I'm really happy to participate. Thank you very much. And for me, it's very difficult to say and to make some theoretics or technicals speech. I am a different way because I'm Doctor of Arts and many things comes through my education, through my knowledges, and which is very important even in business to do what you are big professional. For me, it's very important. When you start the business, you should to be on the stage where you are really good knowledges and professional. I did, now it's a difficult time. Pandemic, COVID-19 bring us on different stage of trade and commercial way. So for me, it's really strange things, but already through my business life, I start 1985. I passed really three formation. It was USSR, then it went to CIS, and now independence. Finally, and thanks God that independence of our country, Uzbekistan. And for me, false formations, it's COVID-19, because never we faced with the staying at home 6 months. Because in our business, it's communications, traveling, participate of summits, session, studies, trainings around the world. It is the main knowledges and main stage of business. And of course, I understand that for this COVID, we should balance between health and business. We should be very carefully, because even woman, it's a lady who is always care, always try to support, surround people, and of course children. Our main mission, of course, children, and to care their life, their health, their support them for their future education, and that a lot of things. And to be in the business, and one more to get responsibility, it's not easy way, and all the women understand that is we are on the different stage. But for me, it's from historical, from all Asian and world civilization. It was a woman always on the some first stage as a, you know, in Central Asia. It was first Amazon, first Queen Tamiris, 7th BC century, which was fighting and winner of the absolutely powerful King Dari and King Kir. And when she prayed to God, it was not God, it was sun and fire, and they put a lot of grasses and flowers to the fire, and it smelled a lot. When I read a lot about these stories and historical woman hero, I understand that very interesting things, that love has became to fragrance, because person, when he is in love, he became fly in fragrance and became smell different way. So even also in many religion pages, we can see how they pronouncing about fragrance. The fragrance, it is food for your astral body, which lead you to success. You know, astral body we always have, and we should to treat with some food. The fragrance, that is food. Even like physical body, we eat spaghetti, pilaf, and biryani, but for our astral body, we need to treat them with fragrances, smell, which give us a big power and lead to success. So that's why I start to production, not only distribution, Chanel, Dior, and other brands to Uzbek market. We decide to make fragrances made in France, because a lot of knows, and a lot of people who knows how to make it in France. And we dedicated our Begin treasure collection fragrances to history and culture. It's time to feel and smell antiquity of world civilization, great history and culture. That is our proverb, which lead us. And on the pandemic time, it was not easy, you know, to make a trade and commercial with our distributor abroad in London. We have shops in France, in Saudi, it's distributor shops, in Kuwait, Dubai, Qatar. But we open online shop. It's begimparfums.com online shops, which gave us unexpected results. all the world became, of course, mainly not on the street running or something traveling, but they start to make the business online. So online business, very important now. And for me, you know, for my ages, grandmama ages, for me, it's really shocked. But my team, our team, create very interesting website. And now we have a lot of orders and delivery immediately, thanks to a lot of transport and logistic companies, which till today work very strongly. So through the fragrances, we make a lot of stories, because through fragrances we can know the really and touch something very great treasures. And Bukhara and Samarkand, our cities in our country, you know, the same ages as Babylon. Babylon, it's not exist now, but you can to come and touch Samarkand in Bukhara, or you can smell this fragrance from the roots of this civilization. You know, it's only, for me, only women can make some beauty business line and commercial in a beauty way, because we always want to be beautiful and looking well, and that is business which give us support even on the pandemic time. We deliver it to all women, even they sit at home, they should to make fragrances and a nice smell and beauty face, care of skin. So it is business which is absolutely suited to women and make us beautiful and successful. And of course, our children look on us and take from us a lot of love. I think that main mission of women put the love to baby heart from the they are grown. Also, I write, when I was a few years, a big jubilee, I write the song and sing myself because I think the singer became proud of their voice. I want to bring my message to the world through this song. And I sent to your forum the link, put your love on baby heart. And when child grown up, he will never do some bad and violence against of neighbors. And he always will be peaceful person, and then it will be peace in the world. So put your love on baby heart. It's my strategy in the life. And of course it is...
Gulchakra, given the late hour, I would very much appreciate if you could already wrap up your presentation.
No, it is, I didn't make a presentation. I made only sent to you the song, and the presentation, you know, for me, it's, you can see on our online. So it is easy to say that when we sit on the, you know, lockdown, on these changes and laws, we can find ourselves and find our true direction. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your personal impressions, and I clearly carry lots of beautiful memories of Bukhara and Samarkand, and I can only imagine how wonderful the smells are. I would now like to turn to our last speaker, Samara Esmat. She's Senior Gender Lead for Middle East and North Africa, East Europe and Central Asia at International Finance Corporation World Bank Group. Samara leads the IFC's gender and private sector programs in the Middle East and North Africa, MENA, as well as in East Europe and Central Asia. Samara, I would like to hand over the screen over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raza. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. And I think the beauty of going last is that I got to listen to all these really, really interesting presentations. And indeed, like everyone said, they're really aligned in content and messaging, and we really amplify each other's messages. So what I want to start off quickly with is for our friends who are connected to this session who might not know the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, very quickly, we are part of the World Bank Group, and we are the part of the World Bank Group that works with the private sector. And my colleague from the European Development, from the EBRD, spoke earlier about her program, and really our two organizations are very similar in terms of what we do and in terms of our mandates. We work with the private sector in emerging markets to address some of the most pressing development challenges, including gender equality. So what I want to do is, and I'm aware of time, I know that people are tired, and I will try to get us to the end, to the finish line quickly. What I want to do in the next 10 minutes, I hope I can have your attention for the next 10 minutes, is really do three things. I want to provide you with a few data points on the issues we discussed today with relation to how COVID has impacted women entrepreneurs. And I have data for the global context, but I think what I then want to do is I want to zoom in on the Central Asian context. And while the data that we have for the Central Asian context is not specific to female entrepreneurs, it does give us a sense of how women and men were affected differently. And then I want to close off by telling you very quickly what are the tools and what are the initiatives that we have in the International Finance Corporation to address some of these issues in a more thoughtful and differentiated way that factors in that women are affected differently from men. So what I want to do is share my screen and walk you quickly through the presentation. So if you give me a second, I'll start my slideshow. So very quickly, I mean, this is just really to reconfirm some of the things that were said earlier this morning. Clearly, it goes without saying that globally, the COVID-19 crisis was very challenging for women entrepreneurs, and it caused a lot of pressures on them. And what I want to do is just kind of provide you with the evidence. So we are very lucky to have a strong network of partners around the world. One of our partners is We Connect International, which is a global organization that connects female entrepreneurs to corporate buyers. And they conducted a study very similar to the one that our EBRD colleagues mentioned earlier, with a sample of 500 female-owned businesses. And they asked them, what are your pain points? Where does it hurt? And for those female entrepreneurs connected right now to this session, go back in time with your memory, remember the days of April and May and June, think about your businesses, and ask yourselves if some of this resonates with your own experience. So the main pain points that were identified in that survey were around disruptions in the operations and the supply chain of the women. Half of the women that were surveyed, for instance, reported that they experienced cancellation of contracts. Another pain point area was around financial stress. Again, for those listening to me right now, and you own a business, go back in time and ask yourself, how was my business affected in the time of May, June, maybe? A lot of women reported back to us in the survey that they had to access their personal savings, that they had to seek new sources of capital, that their margins were thinning, that they couldn't cover operational costs like staff salaries and rent. Now, the most important thing about this is to recognize that men and women were both affected by the COVID-19 crisis. What's the difference? The difference is that on the eve of the breakout of the pandemic, men and women were not positioned equally in the economies around the world. The playing field wasn't equal. So while the issues were similar affecting entrepreneurs, women were simply hit harder. And so other issues, for instance, that I want to touch on that weren't covered actually in our conversation are around how mental health deteriorated for female entrepreneurs and their employees. And that's an issue that's close to my heart. And we really have said, although we're an international finance institution, we're bankers, we really want to take on the agenda of mental health in the business context. And so, for instance, a survey that We Connect conducted saw that 38% had seen decreased employee morale and anxiety about, is my business going to survive or not? Am I losing contracts? Can I get the money and funding that I need? And also my personal situation. Am I affected by this disease? Is a loved one affected? So we have really actually done a lot of thinking around how this is a whole new issue that has been brought to us into the business context that we're thinking about and that we're addressing. And then a very important issue that so many of my colleagues today spoke about was a big pressure on female entrepreneurs, but also a brilliant opportunity, which were the pressures of shifting to digital business. And so, for instance, the WeConnect survey saw 72% of women actually, doing some online activities. And so while that was a pain point for them because they weren't set up in the right way, many of them, it is also a brilliant opportunity in terms of pivoting and reimagining and shifting your business. So I want to end, I talk about the global context and the COVID-19 crisis and its impact on women. I want to end like so many of my colleagues who have talked about the silver lining, which is the opportunity at the end of the horizon, which is we saw women entrepreneurs adjusting, pivoting, putting new product lines in the market, finding new customers, finding new suppliers, and really reinventing themselves. And I think Anne made a point earlier in the session saying that what we really want to see is we want to see this sustained beyond the crisis. And so the question now is, and that's the second part of my presentation, what's the story in Central Asia? Now, unfortunately, we do not have an equivalent survey like the one that was conducted at the global level. We don't have one for the Central Asian context. But what we know very well, and a lot of this is World Bank data, is what did the situation look like on the eve of the outbreak of the pandemic? And it didn't look good for women to begin with. And that explains why they were hit harder by the crisis. And simply, if you look at the data, you will see that the share of majority-owned companies in Central Asia is only 15%, versus then 85% of formally registered businesses that are majority-owned by men. And so that is striking. That is really a fraction. That's a drop in the ocean in the entrepreneurship space where women own businesses, majority-owned businesses. One of the key ingredients of starting a company and growing is having access to money, to financing and capital. And so when you look at the financing access gap, when you look at the size of the credit needs of female-owned businesses in the 3 Central Asian countries of Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, the size of it is 860 million. And I'm sure my colleague from the EBRD would know that. So this is the size of the credit need of these women that is currently not met by local banks. Now, if you looked at the equivalent of that credit need, unmet credit need for men-owned businesses, it's much smaller. So really, women were not in the best place when the crisis hit. So then the crisis hit. And when you look at the right hand of the slide, you'll see that the crisis did a bunch of things to women that it did not in the same way to men. Now, I don't need to repeat things. I think the story is quite evident. It just had an incredible impact on women's time spent on unpaid care, on domestic responsibilities. And that is time away from their workplace, and that is time away from their business. And there's one very interesting thing I think that we need to remind ourselves of. Everyone spoke of the importance of shifting to online business models. And that's wonderful. But there's one huge elephant in the room, and that's the digital gender gap. So it's actually, the fact of the matter is that women have less access to internet, more poor digital skills than men. And so when the workplace shifted to the home and when the business shifted to the home, even when schools shifted to the home, women were not set up in the perfect way to actually absorb that. And that is a huge phenomena of the eve of when the pandemic broke out. And all of that is why women were essentially then hit harder than men. Now, what we do have for the Central Asian context is some really good data points from UN Women. So UN Women is not able to tell us how the crisis has impacted female entrepreneurs in the Central Asian countries specifically, but it's able to tell us how it's affected women and men in the economic space in Central Asia differently. And again, I mean, the main data points are around the impact on the burden on women, on the household burden and the domestic burden, much higher in terms of time, measured in time, than it is for men. And all of that time and all of that effort that women are spending on increased domestic work, household work, homeschooling, is time and energy taken away from their place in the workplace and in the business. But there was another interesting phenomena that we saw. We saw also more decrease of work hour reductions, or we saw more work hour reductions among women compared to men. And we also saw more job losses among women compared to men in some of the Central Asian countries. So just to say, and that probably comes from a place where women probably are occupying jobs that are more at risk. It could be the services sector, it could be the restaurant sector, it could be these types of industries that have been hit harder by the crisis. I want to close by really just saying that what's important at this point is not to dwell so much on the challenges, but really dive into the opportunities and the solutions. And if we say that we recognize that the impact has been gender differentiated, different for men and for women, then we really want to find solutions that are also mindful and thoughtful of the gender differentiated impact of the crisis. And so we have come up with a set of solutions that are really gender differentiated and that are really customized to recognize and take in the specific impact the crisis has had on women and female entrepreneurs in specific. And we started off initially by saying, you know, the most important thing that female entrepreneurs need right away is a shot in the arm, so to speak, to use vaccine language, but really what we mean by that is a cash injection. So we've put an $18 billion fast-track financial support facility into the market, and there are carve-outs in that facility that are earmarked for lending to women. Obviously, the way we channel the funding is through local partner banks. But we more broadly also have a Banking on Women program, which would be the equivalent of the Women in Business program of the EBRD. And that's a program that provides capacity to banks and also financing to banks that is earmarked specifically to female entrepreneurs. And what we have done is talk to our partner banks in that program, and we've said, look, we recognize that cash injections, but also money to recover these businesses and rebuild them, and to understand the specific challenges for these female entrepreneurs is incredibly important. And we want you to pay attention to that as our local partner banks, and we will be working to support you in doing so. We also recognize the importance, of course, of the digitization of women-led businesses, to see them through the crisis, but to position them also for business of the future. And so we have a line of work on how do you digitize women-owned businesses. And then there's finally market access. And so with our partners from WeConnect, and that's the survey data that you saw at the beginning of my presentation, we work on increasing female entrepreneurs' access to market opportunities. Again, all of this is supported by large initiatives like the WeFi initiative that our colleague from EBRD spoke on. Rosa, I'm going to close here and maybe allow you to, if you want and have time, to pose maybe one specific question where you have interest and time for me to elaborate on if there's time. And if not, that's also fine. And I can also share my presentation for more information. So let me stop sharing my presentation and turn it over and back to you, Rosa.
Samar, that was a fantastic presentation, and in a way it kind of nicely sums up the entire panel discussion. And I very much appreciate your extremely positive note. Dive into opportunities, look at the bright side, and look at the silver lining. And this is exactly the case. I mean, the issues and the agility and resilience that you raised, these are the issues that we need to embrace. And with that, I would like to conclude the panel. I apologize for running slightly late. And over time, I would very much hope that our organizers will be able to share these presentations of our panelists, because they contain fantastic statistics which would help actually drive the debate further. I think it's important that whenever we speak, we use facts, we use statistics to illustrate our points. And for example, in Samara's presentation, we had really, really good data to illustrate how COVID-19 impacted on them in different Central Asian countries. So I would like to thank all the panelists. I would like to thank all the participants. Thanks a lot also for your patience for staying slightly longer than initially scheduled for. And I very much hope that we will see each other in different Central Asia trade forums in the future. All the very, very best. Stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye.